Michael, what's in this bill? What is in the Save America Act?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Katie, President Trump's #1 priority that he has said on a number of occasions, as you just mentioned, also amping up the pressure on Republicans to get this passed. Essentially, there are two parts of it. It would require proof of citizenship to vote, and it would also require voter ID. Now, there are concerns among Democrats, most Democrats, if not all of them, that those two parts, those two requests could make it harder for Americans to vote at the ballot box. There's concern that American voters may not have readily accessible those documents, for example, a driver's license or their birth certificate. There's also concern about what would happen for married women, right? If their last name, their married last name, does not match the name on their identification, there is concern that that could be a difficulty to be able to cast their votes at the ballot box. This all coming to a head today. It's going to kick off what we're expecting to be a days-long process, a weeks-long process for debate on the Save America Act. The important thing to note, though, Katie, it has no chance of becoming law at the end of the day. It would require at least 60 votes in the Senate to pass out of the chamber. But still, President Trump really emphasizing it and using it as a litmus test of sorts for Republicans right now.
So, Jake, let's talk about the politics of this, because that's, I think, equally important. The president is really putting to the screws to Republicans to try to get this done. Not all Republicans are on board. Michael was on a little bit earlier talking about Tom Tillis and Lisa Murkowski maybe not voting yes on this. What does it mean to have the president's full focus on this specifically?
Well, I'm not sure his full focus is on this, Katie, but let's just say his full focus on the Hill is on this. But remember, a few thoughts. Number one, Trump needs the Hill way more than the Hill needs him in many cases, right? To pass a war supplemental, he's going to need Congress to vote to give him tens of billions, maybe hundreds of billions of more dollars to conduct his war in Iran. We'll see if that happens. On top of that, the real issue here is whether Republicans are going to eliminate or are going to use the talking filibuster to pass this. In other words, make Democrats hold the floor to block the passage of this bill. There are Republicans who are against the substance of this bill. There are also Republicans who are against that process, because that process would allow Democrats to submit amendments that would be considered at the 50 vote threshold. So at the end of the day, Republicans may get if under that circumstance, Republicans may get the SAVE Act. It may look a lot different with amendments than they had expected. And that's not something that is a comfortable reality. But listen, the president is, for whatever this means, quite focused on this bill. I don't know what kind of leverage he has to make people change their points of view. I mean, the filibuster is one thing that Republicans have held true to. They have not caved to Donald Trump on the filibuster in his 5 or however many years he's been in office. So this is the one issue on which they've held out. And it looks like that is continuing for the time being. You know, the pressure could be crippling. So let's see where this goes over the next couple days, because they are going to be in this weekend dealing with this.
All right. So, James, specifically, we've talked about fraud, and we know there's not, any fraud that changes elections. Investigations have been done. The Heritage Foundation said there's no real fraud. But I'm curious about, in this act, the marriage aspect of it, because Michael Schnell had been talking about how there are concerns that married women will have a hard time registering. Caroline Leavitt dismissed that, said that's not a thing. Is it a thing? It's absolutely a thing. And what she said is, well, it's not really a thing for that many people. Yeah. Let's start with, and there's no doubt that this number is the denominator, and ultimately it's a fraction. The numerator won't be the same as the denominator. But let's start with the denominator. Oh, God, don't do math. Okay, go ahead. 69 million women in America, Katie, have a married name that differs from the name on their birth certificate. Mm-hmm. So now, in addition to all of the hurdles, significant hurdles required for every American to register to vote by showing either a birth certificate or a passport, which is a combination of documents that a lot of Americans don't have. Even if you're in the portion of America that does have those documents, if you're one of those 69 million women, you may live in a state that is different than the state where you were born. So now you have to go to the state where you were married to get a certificate of marriage from that state, and then take that certificate of marriage from that state
to the state where you're trying to register to vote, and their election officials have to determine whether that's
not
valid.
necessarily impossible. It's burdensome.
It's hugely
the
burdensome.
burden itself, does it violate your constitutional right to vote to put that many burdens on your ability to do so?
The 24th Amendment eliminates poll taxes. Now, this isn't a poll tax in the literal sense, but in the practical de facto sense, it absolutely is a burden that comes with significant expense, significant chilling, and significant hurdles that will impose a burden that will mean some people melt off the voter rolls.
If this passed,
right.
And it contained any of that, the burdens that you were talking about, they would essentially, there would be a case to be made, and that case, I imagine, would end up at the Supreme Court?
Absolutely.
All right. Jake, let's talk about the other stuff that the president's not focusing on. He's clearly focused on this on Capitol Hill. What does that mean Republicans are not going to be able to talk about in this election year?
Well, he seems to think, and he told House Republicans last week, Katie, at the retreat in Miami, that he thinks the SAVE Act, this voter ID citizenship test piece of legislation, would deliver Republicans the majority, or keep the majority for Republicans. Needless to say, most Republicans are skeptical of that. But if Trump is insistent on talking about this, about voter ID and citizenship tests, are they going to talk about affordability? Do they think it's a hoax? Are they going to talk about the tax bill? I mean, listen, Katie, the entire Republican majority and their entire message for 2026 has been predicated on this tax bill, keeping tax rates flat, some new tax cuts, which does not seem, according to most polls, to be resonating with the public. So they've thrown all their chips in the middle, and maybe Trump will say, well, you didn't pass the SAVE Act. We could have won the majority, could have kept this majority with the SAVE Act. That doesn't seem to be likely to me. And now they have a war in which they're spending $1 billion a day, and the president's going to want another $100 billion to keep prosecuting this war in the Middle East, a war that the president indicated he wouldn't get into any wars. So, this is all politically problematic for the president. And I don't know what the message is going to be, especially as they're here fighting with themselves. I mean, Republicans are fighting with Republicans in the run up to the election. That is not a good place to be. That's not where their leadership wants them to be.